All right, I have 6 o'clock. We'll call the first night's meetings of the Finance Committee budget. Excuse me, their hearings together. As we get started here, we would, being a little bit different than a budget meeting, we don't have a set of minutes for the pastor to look at this point. Hey, can I ask, can we get quiet, please? So tonight's movement here, we are set to look first at the schools 141 fund. So at this time here, Mr. Satterfield, if you are willing to come to the floor here for us, and we've been given some additional information in the last few minutes here that was presented to us. It sounds like they were handed to the mayor possibly today. If you want to take a seat, or if you want to stand at the podium, either one's fine with me. Take a seat right there is fine too. It's a small group. We can work here at the table. Have some workroom. So I think each member has had their information in their hand for at least a day or so, but I think there may be some things that I'm looking at here in front of me that may be changing on this information. So Dr. Satterfield, I'll let you look at bringing those pieces that you want to present first to us here. It sounds like there's some changes. You want to update us on that piece?
Okay, well, do you want a budget?
Do you have a new printed budget?
I do.
Does it reflect
Yes.
the new numbers or the, okay.
Do you want me to pass that out?
That would be great.
Did you get them?
I did not. Think so.
I have one extra one for you. First of all, I want, before I'm saying I'm sorry I made an error, I'd like to say that for those who are here, I think we have, in the state of Tennessee, we have moved to a new funding form. Before here, familiar, doing this for a long time, we call it the BEP. And the BEP has been ditched for a new funding form called the Tennessee Investment in Student Achievement, called TISA. How they calculate how schools get their money is totally different than the way it's been in the past. One of the biggest differences is that in the past, they calculated ADMs, or average daily attendance, in 4 months, months 2 and 3 and 7 and 9. Now they calculate that all 9 months. So when students become transient and they move in, they could carry money with them. But they can also move out and take that money with them. And then students are funded at a different level. They call it a needs-based funding formula. So the basic amount a student will get is like 68.20. Not the office, 68%. So 68.20. In the BEP, that was like 7,300. So they reduced what a student will bring. And then they based it off of a student's needs. So if a student has characteristics of dyslexia, might get an extra 5%. If they're an economically disadvantaged student, they get an extra 25% of that base, and that's 6,320. If they are a special ed student, then they get another percentage based off what the degree of the disability is. So the disability was what they call a unique learning level 10, that might generate 140% more than that. But what's important is that this is a very volatile formula. And in the statute, it says that all school districts and superintendents will be trained on the new formula. And there will be a TISA manual. And if you ever watch Forrest Gump, you know, he got that $1 million wound, but he said he ain't never seen any of that money. And we haven't seen any of that training. We haven't seen the TISA manual. We haven't received any training. I heard about a rumor it might take place in June. We'll probably have a budget passed before that time. So what I've tried to talk to our board members about is we need to be careful that we've got some new money. We've got actually we picked up about $1 million more. But that's basically due to the governor put a couple of $2 billion into the formula. So the formula didn't generate us a lot of new money. It was what the money that we put in. Now, the error that I made, and Ms. Thomas, I am sorry that I caused work for you in the late afternoons, but only after Mayor McCall called me and said the attorney would like to see the letter. And I said, well, I've not all read all of that, you know. And I looked through it, and I'm going, wait a minute, that doesn't look right. And I went back, I checked our budget, and the issue that I did is, in that letter, when they calculate, they tell you what the allocation is. And then the allocation is like 12 million. But in that is the local match, which is 2, and the balance is the statement. The error I made is, it was a good idea, that I combined the local and the state to be the state money. But at some point in time, somebody would catch that, and I call it the second. So that's good. Board, I apologize. It's a preliminary budget.
We'll send you to Mr. Gully's math class.
Well, it's really not a calculation. It's just transposing a number from one spreadsheet to another, bringing it over. So maybe I might need better glasses or something. But anyway, Amy, I apologize for that. The main thing that I think is the crux of the matter is to talk about some capital outlay things that we're trying to do. First of all, we're getting $1 million additional dollars. And we've allocated probably $750,000 to $800,000 of that money based in personnel. All of our, I know that in the TISA letter, I think I have that somewhere here. It says that we have to raise our existing allocated educator salaries by $176,920. We have done that. One of the things that we've done is taken all of our certified teachers and we raised them $1,923. You take $1,923 and you multiply that times 106, 107 teachers, that we're well over that amount. So we'll meet that threshold. And then we've given all our non-certified people a raise, all of our administrators a raise. And so we've taken that new money and we've really invested in people. I don't know if you haven't heard this or not. I know the county doesn't have any problem with this, but finding good employees and keeping them has been a challenge for us. And if we don't keep up with those levels of salary expectations, employees have a lot of options these days. So Mr. Kerr said it very well the other night, that we've invested in our people with this additional funds. So that's where we are. The next thing is the capital outlay. I could talk to you forever, but the elementary school, before you probably know more about this than me. I mean, you probably have some experience in this. But many, many years ago, both the elementary and the middle school roof were in the same place. They had a pitch gravel roof. And of course, I don't know why, everybody asks me why do they make flat roofs? And I've asked engineers, architects, why do they keep putting flat roofs on schools? Plan is very simple. They're cheap. And the people who make those decisions say, well, I'll do it cheaply, and we'll leave it up to posterity to fix it. So what's happened is those tar gravel roofs have leaked over time. And at the middle school, we barely got it fixed in time where when your roof starts leaking, it starts looking like that. It'll start with water spots and ceiling tiles. And then eventually the ceiling tiles will start to fall out. You can replace them, but they still get wet and fall out. And they look more like this over time. And then after you pull the ceiling tile back for a while, you get to the corrugated metal, they start to corrode and rust and black. So what we were able to do a couple of years ago is we were able to, with the help of the county commission, to finally find a remedy and put on a standing seam pitch metal roof. Mr. Ford, I think you've walked that building with us and seen it before and after. Mr. Gull, you work in that facility every day. And I think you will agree that since we put that standing seam metal roof on, there hasn't been a leak in the building. Is that safe to say?
We threw all the buckets out.
Yes, threw all the buckets out.
Right.
So that's work. That takes us to the elementary school, which had the same pitch gravel roof. And then they put the spray foam roof on. The spray foam roof is good, it's lightweight. They have to put a piece of decking. You see, put the decking on the top of the pitch gravel. And then they do the spray foam, and then they put a urethane membrane over the top. And when they put that down, they guarantee that for 10 years. And every 10 years to bring your warranty back up, they do a procedure called scarifying. They'll grind that down almost to the top of the foam again, and then they'll spray another rubber coat on there of urethane, and then it will be guaranteed for another 10 years. If you remember the tornado that turned over on the bus in December, about 2 years ago, bus 1, with Mr. Robinson in it, we were blessed that day that he come out unscathed. But on that day in December, Brazos Urethane was on site to start the scarifying and recoating process and bring that warranty up. I got a call from Mr. Cawthon, our safety, our maintenance person, and he said, they want you up there on that roof. If y'all know anything about me, I'm kind of scared of heights, but I knuckled it up, climbed the ladder, went over the parapet wall, and they said, when you walk on this roof, you can feel it's springy. And it was springy in some spots. But I've been on that roof before, and it kind of felt springy back then. But they said because that tornado came in, that it had lifted the roof. And if we turn this thing on insurance, they'll, not only will they scarify the roof, they'll take it all off, put a whole new membrane, new scuppers, gutters, the whole thing, and you'll get a new roof for free. Sounds like a good idea, right? We turned it into insurance. Tennessee Risk Management, by the way, same insurance, county carries, right? Well, Tennessee Risk Management Trust said, well, let's wait a minute. So they had a structural engineer, and they basically said, that That tornado didn't hurt that roof. That roof's been like that. It was improperly installed from its inception back in the 80s, and you can see this is tore, this is a decking. One of the things, if you feel that, you don't feel many indentions of the gravel. You also don't see much tar where it's stuck. Does that make sense what I'm saying to you? So they were saying that it was improperly applied at the original installation. And Tennessee Risk Management says, we are no longer going to insure your roof. So I said, what does that mean? They said, well, your school could catch on fire. It could blow down in a tornado. And we would replace your school, minus the roof. So we don't have any insurance on the roof. So we've been debating on what to do, and we've had bids from just going back with another spray foam roof and getting the warranty of it. They take screws, pin it down. They want about $750,000, latest estimate. About $750,000 to do that. Or we could go back with a standing seam metal roof like the one we have at the middle school that has done wonders for us. It doesn't have a leak. And we could put that on for about $893,000. I've estimated the budget $900,000. Plus, we'd have to include the architecture. Now, before any of you were in the seats that you were in, we spoke with the then mayor and then chairman of the commission, and they recommended that we sue the group that applied this back some 20-some odd years ago. We hired a structural engineer as recommended by our architect, and they wrote about a 50-page report. You're welcome to read it anytime you want to. And one of the things that they recommended was that litigation was not an option for us. That it had gone through about, that contractor had sold out about 3 times. And the statute of limitations and stuff was gone. But that's, you may want to read that out, if you have insomnia at night, it's a good read at night. But I've got that for you. So if you want to see that. So we have gone to the board. As you know, we have 3 new members, and we've taken our time. In 1 month, we would have the polyurethane spray foam people come in and talk everything about spray foam roofs, what they do and what they talk. You remember those early days and being on board, Miss Betty? Yeah. Didn't know you was getting into all that, did you? But anyway, so 1 month they would have somebody come in and we'd have a contractor come in and talk. Another time we'd have a contractor come in and talk about a, what do you call that? A EPDM roof. Don't ask me what that stands for, but what that is like an inner tube. And you'd have to take all the foam, all the gravel, take it down to the base. This is the most expensive. And this is the same roof that we have on the high school. We don't like it either. It's fix and repair monthly too. It tears, breaks, and it's costly too. But what we do know is the metal roof, for the price, works. And then that's what the board has chosen to do. They made that decision a couple of months ago that they wanted the metal roof with the county commission's help to do that. Now I want you to hear this. That roof is not leaking a great deal right now. We're 2 years beyond the 10-year warranty now, and we don't have insurance on the roof. But we're living on borrowed time on that roof. So basically, what our budget had was that we have some capital outlay issues. I don't know how many people go to the football games, but the last 2 home games that I went to were not much fun. Now, we did win one, which was very good, but I didn't get to watch much of the football game because I had to manage the women walking in sewage in the women's restroom. So that first game, we had to close it down at halftime. And then we had it worked on. And then we had a second home game, and we had to close it by halftime. That facility was built in 1963. It has cast iron piping, and a lot of stuff gets caught on that flaking metal pipe. And so we have decided that the next football game I go to, I'm going to try to watch the game instead of taking all the women over to the men's restroom and letting them go into the bathroom 2 by 2. No, but did anybody experience that? Yeah, right. And it's not a lot of fun. And I would like for the Department of Health not to get involved in this. So one of the things that we've talked about as a board is we're not going to put ourselves in that position, and we're going to rent the porta johns going forward, starting with graduation. We're going to do that. So I've talked to a contractor, and the answer to it is to go inside and just cut all the flooring out and take out the cast iron piping and put in PVC. And that probably estimated, had a local contractor look at it, $300,000, $350,000, something like that. But the biggest issue that we got is that's going to take a while. And where do we put our football team during that time? So we had this great idea, led by me, that what we'll do is we'll build a new field house outside of a floodway. Oh, by the way, have you seen the new facilities at the baseball field? Learned a couple of things about that. There's a floodway and a floodplain. And you can't build in a floodway, but you can in a floodplain, but you can't change the overall square footage you have to build on that platform. Well, I got a little leeway from your former building inspector, is that we were able to move those restrooms out of the floodway into the floodplain, and our square footage hadn't changed. Does that make sense what I'm saying to you? So what they tell me is that the football field that I can rebuild on the red brick building as long as I don't change the footprint. So our idea was that we would put restrooms and like where the officials dress in that footprint, move the football, the dressing room and stuff up where the trees and stuff are, which is out of the floodway. And then that way, when it floods, all their equipment and stuff would not get flooded. Just like what we're trying to do with the baseball field. We understand that we're going to get, it's not if it's going to flood, it's when it's going to flood, right? So we got a concession stand on wheels. So when it starts raining, we'll clamp it out and do that. And then the restrooms are just porcelain, concrete bought and wash them out. That's what we was trying to play at football field. But that's what the board was asking is if this project of doing both, we've got that over somewhere. If you turn over in your budget page, the last page, second to last page, page 15, where it says 76,100 capital outlay, what you have in there are to renovate those football restrooms, relocate the football field house, and to put the roof on the elementary school. And basically what the board was saying is that we will split that with the county, and the board would take on 72% of the cost, and the county would take on the other, 18%, 28%, the other 28% of that. So the idea is that we would take it, we would fund it three to one. And the idea was is that every student goes to Travis County Elementary School. We help every kid's not in the band, I don't play football, they are children. So we definitely help all of the students. And that you've had a lot of success. The commission has put a roof on the middle school. They funded that in the past. That's something they've done, and they've done with a great deal of success. That had been thrown money. So basically, that's what we're looking at. I think I was talking to Mr. Gully late this afternoon, was the main thing that I would want to know is what kind of appetite would this body have to do some type of sharing? That 28% share, with the board taking on the majority of that. However, I would have to go back to the board since I didn't plug in the right revenue, and that would change their fund balance $2 million. And they may not have an appetite when I go back to them. I don't know. But I know this, that they won't have an appetite. I don't think they'll have an appetite if they don't get some help somewhere on this list. So, Mr. Gully, that's all that I think I have at this time, but I'm willing to answer any questions that this body might have.
Heard quite a bit of information here. You've got a lot in front of you. Are there any questions at this point, Dr. Satterfield, with this budget piece that anyone has to come forward? I've tried to quickly go through what you handed us. I don't see any changes in any expenditure.
No, there were none.
Okay.
There were none. Mr. Gully, the only changes in that budget, Ms. Thomas, is on page 2, on 46,510, Tennessee Investment in Student Achievement. That was changed from $12,203,690 to $10,147,510. So that reflected a difference of $2,056,174. That's that change. Then the only other change would be on page 16, the bottom line. Your fund balance changed to $1,372,495. You're exactly right. No expenditures changed anywhere else in the budget. Because that's our school plan. That's our academic plan. That's unchanged.
I might mention, I did ask Miss Amy here earlier if she had had a chance to check on, what Dr. Satterfield has asked here. The school board has presented to us as a budget, requires a debt for the county. Right now, we're sitting about 5.37% is what that bond would be setting at, according to today's numbers. We all do realize, and I hope we all realize, that we're looking at a interesting, seems to be volatile movement of that number. So that's a today number. Whether that number's less or more by the time this comes to play, that is not something we can answer. But today, we're looking at 5.37%. If I'm not mistaken, 2 years ago, that roof was locked in a little under 2%.
2.77.
Just a little over, to my bad there. 2.77 is what Ms. Amy stated. So quite a change in that piece. It's a very similar cost to that same piece. I believe, I was looking back, and I believe in the budget before, the school board ate about 300,000 of that middle school roof, and this county took on the rest, if I see that right. First payment was the school board's payment,
I don't recall.
if I've looked through this correctly.
was.
That's.
The first year's principal payment was the schools.
That'd be in your 2021, 2022 numbers, that's where you'll see that at.
One of the things I will add is that the bid was a quote, an estimate from A-Alert Roofing. We got a quote from them during the summer, and then we asked them for another one in November, and it was exactly the same.
Yeah, 'cause
So if we choose to go this way,
they're included in that.
they'll have to bid it. But my hope is that it won't go up. The same company, A-Alert Roofing, and Brandon again is the contractor. Brandon again. You get Brandon again. And I have that estimate too, Mr. Blair, I think I might have done. Did I leave one of those with you?
I'm not sure what estimate we're talking about. Oh, for the roof, yes, sir, you did, earlier today, yes, sir.
I've got one, somebody wants.
I think it was written in August, is that correct? Is that when it said?
November
November, sorry.
7th was the most recent one.
I don't know if it would change much, but fortunately, building materials are actually decreasing at current times. Even though interest rates are increasing, building materials seem to be on a decrease. You remember having questions at this point? The one question that comes to my mind, and unfortunately this really can't be answered, but at this point, it seems to be a great change in the fund balance conversation that we're having here, based on the $2 million change there. So there's a lot of in front of us. It appears what this body is somewhat seeming to see is there a thought process going forward with the roof funding of the elementary school and leaving the other conversation out, or is there, whatever comes, the school board decides, they'll have to present us something back in a week or so with their actual plan for that piece, but might need to have an idea whether this body has any recommendation on the decision of debt to push that to the county commission is what I'm actually saying. Is that going to be something that looks favorable for this body to favorable or not favorable? And that's really what we're seeming to be tasked with right now. If I understood this budget correctly, I see no dollar increase to the county that would be maintenance of effort. MOE, you'll see that piece, no maintenance of effort increase to the county. Mr. Ford, we've learned that over the last few years myself, and you've known it for quite a while, but I've definitely learned that it's something to keep your eye on is maintenance of effort, because those are continual reoccurring funds. A debt is something that would have its time limit and go away. So just the thoughts there from mine.
And I failed to say that, and I think you're picking that up, is another reason why is asking the commission to address the roof is it's a capital outlay, it's a one-time non-reoccurring, and it doesn't count towards your maintenance of effort. Mr. Bill and I talked about that. I think Amy, you and I mean, the county commission would have to enter into a resolution and be specific that this is a one-time payment and it doesn't apply to maintenance of effort. And the State Department of Education will accept that and will not apply that to maintenance of effort.
Which one of these figures is your roof that you talked about? It's the 1.2.
Yes, sir. Do you have a copy of the budget there? Look at this. I don't know what she's got. I don't have that one. But if you'll go to that budget I handed you, and you'll go to page 15.
Yes,
Are you there? Yeah. Okay. If you look under regular capital outlay, 76,100, 399, under the estimated column of $240,000, 67.5 of that is architectural fees for the roof. The rest are architectural fees for the other capital outlay that the board has discussed addressing. And then if you look at 76,100, 707 building improvements, that's the 900,000 for the roof, the estimate. So if you add the 67.5 and the 900,000 together, the estimation of that is $967,500.
Yeah,
That's
it's
where
also
that is in the
on
budget.
that from that sheet. It's broken down on the sheet that was on the front of your budget.
It's almost,
It's the one that's actually got the 141 pink tab on it. It's broken down for you right there very well.
And I'll make a copy, but she's already made one, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think I bought some of those too.
I might mention, I just asked Amy, that payment is roughly right now on the middle school roof, which is a very similar debt, roughly $118,000 a year. It varies a little bit from that, but roughly $118,000 a year on that 2.77. We did that on 10 years, but we paid an additional payment a year ago with some funds that were available, so it's.
So that knocked it off a year.
It's knocked off 1 year. It was originally set up on a 10-year. The school paid the first payment on that is what happened. That was in that agreement. The school board paid the first payment, first year's payment, and then the county took on the next 9 years at roughly $118,000 a year. I think
I'm sorry.
June of 29,
Oh, yes.
that's with that year reduction.
Mhm.
it's in your,
I'm looking at, yeah, I'm
It's in
looking
yours.
at last year's versus this year's too, so.
that just gives an idea of what, it's a very similar cost is all I'm trying to present for this case at this point. It is something that was taken on in the past for the middle school, which was in dire need. I appreciate Dr. Satterfield telling us it's not necessarily in dire need at this point, but can only speak on the fact that the middle school got in very dire need.
Are we able to use ARPA funds on any of that?
All those are almost completely spent. I'm down to like $66,000 of ESSER funds. And they're obligated. You know, they're budgeted. ESSER funds have been good. We can't wait until they're spent out. The management of ESSER funds, it is very taxing. But y'all haven't experienced any of that, though, have you? Monitoring of ESSER funds? Y'all had any issues?
Seems to have been a lot more laxed. Yes, sir. A lot more laxed. Excellent. No. I think as we see what's been put in front of us here, there's some no have to movement, but there's, the opportunity is in front of us to think, is there a feeling of this committee that there might be a willingness to take on that debt? We've seen a full budget. We're just looking at not one of those budgets, and there are a few other debts inside that budget coming our way. It is not more of a conversation, but I think if I heard Dr. Satterfield correctly, he's going back to his board, no matter what, to bring us a updated budget in terms of, are they okay with the $2 million off the fund balance? Is pretty much what it's taking at this point. So. I know we said here in a budget year, some of us are very new to that. Mr. Wilkins?
Dr. Satterfield, just a question. The actual year 21-22, we put in $240,000 through the general fund. And our last year's budget was at a $1.3 million deficit.
that's what we estimate at this time, turning back in. Yes, sir.
Is the numbers in the proposed budget? Or, I mean, now, of course, we're looking at different numbers now. But the deficit of 2.7,
Yes, sir.
is there going to be that kind of wiggle room from a liability standpoint in the proposed?
No, I would, of course, what you've got in there is those capital outlays. And it's a wash in that budget, because you've got, if you look on page 3, 48, 130 contributions, you've got 9675, which is the cost of living architectural fees coming in. That's on page 3. The very top line, you've got that coming in, and then you've got that expenditure going out. But what you do have is that work on those restrooms and that football field house thing running in there about $2 million. So if you take that out, then you're showing a negative balance of about $774,000. And then if you turn over about 200, if you ran it like you have the past 2 years, a trend, it'd be showing about $500,000 in the red, which is manageable. But what's not manageable is the 2.7 million. You see what I'm saying? So, talking to the board, later on, when I go back to the board, is this something they want to do? Do they want to scale that back down? Do they want to take out a loan and try to do some of that and split that in half? You see what I'm saying? But you're right. No, I couldn't close that gap between 2 million and 213 million and 213,000. One of the things I will say that's good is the board, as you know, have worked diligently on our buildings, our campuses, our facilities, and knock on wood, the weather, tornadoes, but we should be in a shape where we shouldn't have any major capital outlay emergencies to hit us in the foreseeable future, since we've been so proactive over the several years. Other than the roof, which is where you're talking about considering.
I thought the last time I heard you speak, you said in the near future we're going to look to have Monroe Elementary School.
I also think I said during the time I'm superintendent, I don't expect that to be happening. No, we can recoup, Mr. Ford, we are going to have to build on to our schools at some point in time, but there's space that we can recoup. Is we've got like a teacher that has her own art room. We got a music teacher that has their own art room. We've got a phys ed room where we just do wellness. And one of the things that we can do, like most schools, we can take those activities and put them on carts, and we can push the teachers into those classrooms. Now, it's not the most desirable, it's what most people do, but before we would spend millions on building schools, we would learn to recoup the space that we have.
So the other thing is actually take priorities, what you said.
Yes.
The roof and hospital work on.
The whole idea has been, what I've been working with for years, is to try not to build facilities and try to take care of the facilities that we've got and extend the usable life and save taxpayers like yourself and you save those dollars. And we've been able to do that. Another thing that the board did this year is they bought the corner lot at the middle school. So now it's like Monopoly. They own the whole square. And one of the things that I am convinced that, don't foresee it happening during my tenure, but one day you'll want to build a new middle school. And you can put that middle school and butt it up and run it around that hill and face that school. So you have school going on and building a new school at the same time, and then demo the existing school, and that'll be all in the parking lot the entrance. One of the things is, like y'all tonight, when you do that, I would probably make that like a fifth, sixth, seventh grade, and then take my fifth graders out of elementary school and to recoup those classrooms for those other grades can expand. But the board has been very proactive in purchasing that land and monopolizing that square where you won't have to go out and buy land and build another school because you have all the utilities and stuff like there. So I think that was very smart on their behalf.
Another thing I noticed in the very back page, you got, 22-23, you're estimating how 4 million left, and 23-24, you're down to 1.3.
Yeah, that's where if we decided to go all out on renovating those restrooms and building a new football athletic facility, we chose to do that. The board's gonna have to have some heavy discussion about that. $2 million. But they'll have to go back and talk about that. And then one of the things they might want to do is they might want to take out a loan, put half of it down and pay the other half. But they can't make those decisions here this evening.
So what are you actually asking from us tonight, then?
The roof.
The roof?
The roof. What is this body's appetite for doing a sharing and taking on the cost of the roof? And then allowing myself to go back to the board, of course, 4 out of 5 that were here, and say, this is what the county commission, budget and finance, this is what they're willing to do. And now ask the board, what are you willing to do now? And then come back to you with another budget proposal.
Dr. Sheffield, one question. I've heard you say it twice, take out a loan. If I understand it correctly in the past, the school board itself can't take out a loan.
You're exactly right.
Okay.
But we have a Q-SCAD loan. That is the heat and cooling renovation of the middle school where you work. You're exactly right. The county commission took out the loan, but the Board of Education makes that payment.
Yes, sir. You're talking about making a payment through the counties?
Yeah, making a payment to the county. You're exactly right. I think you can find that. You could find that on page 16. You can find that on page 16 on 82-130, 612, principal on other loans. That's a Q-SCAB and an EESI. Those are 2 loans that the board is making payments on as we speak. And
Yes, sir. Making a plan to pay that loan that the county has taken out.
and you said that interest rate was what,
5.37 currently today. That's ever-changing in this date. So I think, as a body, I will ask if there's any thought process. I don't foresee that we have to make a thought process tonight. We were talking about taking on debt. I would encourage, I think, this body, if we think that's a reasonable piece and something the county might be willing to take on, that we make a favorable recommendation sometime. If not, we do not leave a favorable recommendation. The one thing that I think I'm seeing continuing is there is no required maintenance of effort. Just in front of us sits the loan that the county would have to go into debt. That's literally where we're at being asked tonight. I've said in a few of these where we were asked totally different things, and this is really a debt piece, not a increase to maintenance of effort. That is one thing to keep in our mind. I would certainly like to know myself, where does the school board is going to sort of be in terms of the projects they've got laid out and the dollars they are allocated with a different amount of dollars. It'd be nice to have had that whole piece, but we understand things happen, and that's where we sit.
And Mr. Gully, you know, depending on what you want to do, our next board meeting is like May the 19th, I think. And that might be a long timeline, but we have other options. You know, we can do executive decisions, special call meetings, and that's what I'm saying, you know, if I can get some type of guidance from this body, then I can work with the next one.
Might state we have next Wednesday night somewhat left as a hold place. So would Wednesday night give your board time to have a special meeting or an executive session to be able to bring back a finalized plan?
Chairman Kirk?
Change our monthly meeting to next week.
Well, we can have a special call meeting. If you want.
I apologize, I said next Wednesday, but I meant next Thursday, I'm sorry. Yeah, it is Thursday.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we would not meet on Wednesday, we just don't do that.
But I didn't ask you to, we're meeting on some Wednesday nights
Oh.
here. Our finance committees are meeting on some Wednesday nights, but to have us something brought to us by next Thursday is our open night. We've got an extra night. Looks like it worked out good that we had a planned night that might be available. I'm just throwing out that date exists if we need to get finalized numbers. Would it take 5 days? Today's Tuesday.
They've got 5 days.
Is that that weekend? Okay.
And social media does count.
We could do a special call meeting on the night and have you something back on the 11th.
That would be next Tuesday night for y'all to be able to talk these pieces out, make that conversation to us, and then meet back on the road. Is that where this committee feels more comfortable to see where, if anything changes, that is in front of us here tonight? While we've got you here, is there anything that you would like to hear? And I'm just, Mr. Curry, we've got most of the, well, it looks like 4/5 of the committees here. So is there anything that you would like to hear from this body at this point in conversation, or do you have enough information in front of you to take back and come back with your next piece to us?
Well, I'm just speaking for myself, but I think Dr. Satfield laid it out pretty well. This is one of the few times that I have seen the school board system have enough support to do a large financial upgrade of the facilities in Strasburg County. Started with the roof on the middle school a few years ago, and that has extended on to the baseball, softball complex, which has now become a really nice facility and for the future. So it gives us an opportunity to continue that mode over, well, we did the football bleachers before that, obviously, I forgot that. But it gives us an opportunity to get our main athletic areas. And we tend to say football a lot, but that the weight room is going to be put into that facility, which all sports can use. And that's something that we've talked about, that we want to make sure all sports are able to use. And you know, we can get that out of there, and then that will allow us, once that's gone, to renovate the old field house. We have to stay within that footprint, and we'll be able to enlarge the women's restroom, the men's restroom, have a place where our officials can actually dress now. Instead of over at the baseball field, they can actually dress over at the football field, and then have a meeting area where, like at halftime, the team could come in and meet there instead of having to go all the way back up to the other, to there. we've never had the support, this kind of financial upgrade to our facilities. And so with the help of the county commission, obviously that begins with the budget committee, and then hopefully it'll span out to the county commission itself. And I think Dr. Satterfield said it well, it's a sharing of things. If the county court commission can decide to take on the cost of that roof, then we have decided that we can take on the cost of the rest of it. Obviously, with a $2 million clerical error, we have to go back and look at that. But that was and you said it great, Mr. Chairman, you know, we do need to look at that again to make sure we have that and get our P's and Q's in line too.
I appreciate you stating what you stated there. The two things I heard I want to ask you one more time, elaborate on. One of those was there was the first time you've seen it so that there was enough dollars there available. It looked like those dollars were easily available. It was a $2 million cost.
Right.
Now we're talking about a $2 million
Lance.
conversation here to have. So that's why I think on my end here, I'm more concerned of what you all are willing to continue with in that part.
Exactly.
And the next piece I wanted to elaborate on, there may be other individuals here of this body that would like to speak on this, and I'll certainly grant you that ability, but you did state that this $2 million upgrade, if I heard you correctly, a portion of it's restrooms in those fields for public use. I understand graduation takes on at that field, but I heard you say that there's the facility is not being built for football entirely. You stated something about.
Well, there's gonna be a weight room inside this field house.
So all sports are gonna be able to utilize
I would,
this field.
personally, again, I preempted this by saying I'm speaking for myself. I would never vote for anything that, like a field house, now that's different, the dressing area and stuff.
Right.
But as far as something like a weight room and stuff, it should be able to help all sports in Trousdale County to
Exactly.
get my support.
And may I also add, in that sketch floor plan is a good size athletic training room where the athletic trainer could have room to rehabilitate and work with all athletes. It even has a door that goes to the outside so that our female athletes can come in there and do that rehabbing and not have access to the rest of the building.
I forgot that part.
That's a
It is, a lot of it is for the total use of the school system, of the athletic departments of the school system. But one thing
Is
Mr. Chairman,
Let me get Mr. Ford and I'll get you right back there.
has all the excess wheel tax money been extended?
I don't know.
Yes, sir, that went to the
All
roof
that's been
project.
spent?
We put it on the roof project.
Right.
That was that additional payment on the roof. Oh,
Robert,
Mr. Atwood, you ready back there?
Yes, sir. They have talked a lot about it, but one thing, I know Dr. Satterfield spoke about the ladies having to walk in sewage and everything, and I believe you've been to a couple of them games where you've seen it too. But one of the biggest things in doing the renovation down there is to make the bathrooms bigger, and the biggest thing is to make them handicap accessible. We have nothing at that facility until we built the bleachers for handicap accessible people. And that's the reason we want to build the field house, is to make the field house now where the football team is smaller, to make bigger bathrooms to get us ADA compliant.
Are there any other questions or concerns of this committee? I think, Sheard, I might would entertain any conversation if you want to ask that they take this back and bring it back to us on the 11th. We can entertain that same piece with the changes needed. What we're being asked for, again, is a debt. A non-MOE. I'll continue to put that piece in conversation.
I think a lot of the renovations are needed for the school system. I'm not in question about that. My question is, like you said, it is a debt and we're just getting started in budget, so that's,
Good to see what lays in front of us to gather and have that discussion. It is a process for that reason. It seems to be a quiet committee.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Kerr.
Since we're gonna meet next Tuesday, I know y'all will be meeting, but if any other county commissioners wanted to come to our meeting, they'd be more than welcome and to ask questions. Whatever.
Yes, sir. I assume that meeting would still be broadcast, videoed and broadcast. Are they that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So it would be available for
Wouldn't
that
it, Dr.
viewing
Sadler?
public.
It'd be whatever you tell me.
It'd be broadcast.
It's available for the viewing public to see what we're discussing.
I'll make a motion that we let them bring it back to us and let they have the
I'll
meeting.
second that.
Got a motion and a second from this committee to ask that the school board bring this back to us on that night of the 11th. Any discussion on that motion? Yeah, seeing none, hearing none. All those in favor, let me know by stating aye. Any opposed with a nay? Looks like the ayes do have that piece. I appreciate the outlay. I want to say that. I appreciate the discussion that's gone forward and the clarity of what the plan is going forward. Mr. Kerr, I had not, when I looked at this, I saw it says football field house, football restrooms. It says football field house, football restrooms. In that football field house, I just heard that it's more of a multi-purpose weight facility area. There is a football field house, but there is also a weight room, a multi-use, all sports, that being female, male, is all available to be utilized there. So that's a different piece than what I was seeing here in front of me, just to be honest with you.
I think, Mr. Chairman, we've had a long history of thinking anything with the football field was football only and that type of thing. I think it's gonna take us a while to change that verbiage, but that's this board that, in everything that we've done up to date, is always identified, including as many programs as possible.
I can only speak for myself, but I appreciate hearing that conversation that we are looking at all athletics as an opportunity versus just an athletic upgrade. It seems a little harder for the public to take, and I'm speaking more, I know I'm as a chair here of this piece, but it seems a little bit easier for myself to swallow, to think that we're talking about all, we're benefiting all. So that's something for us here to go. I appreciate the presentation. Anything else?
And, while we're talking about all, that roof affects all students.
You don't have a drawing of what the field house is gonna look like?
We have a sketch.
Just the floor is it's not a typing statement.
The architect is working on it, but we didn't want to get obligated to him a lot of money until we kind of knew where we were. That's what I'm saying.
All right, at this point, I know debt services was on there tonight, but debt services was here for us mainly for the purpose of, we're talking about debt tonight. If I understood that piece correctly, because there's no other debts to talk about necessarily tonight. I might ask this one question. If I've looked at this budget correctly, I do not see an area where debt service is losing any pennies this time.
Correct.
Okay.
No
That
pennies have been moved on any funds.
No pennies have been moved on any funds, if we heard that piece. So in the past, there's been some out of that piece, but we are continually looking at that debt service, which our county, as I speak on debt, is not in a very negative place in terms of debt, as you really said. We do have a few debts, but they are manageable. There are a lot of debts in this budget. I saw a hand up back there.
A motion and a second on the floor.
We did. All voted aye.
You did?
Yeah.
My bad.
Thank you. Good job. Oh, yes, sir. Mr. Reed.
I have a question just on the elementary roof project that I'd like to see addressed possible. July 2021, y'all, the board approved a 2-year project to fix the roof at the elementary. Was that not done?
That was prior to the tornado. And yes, we were going to scarify that roof, and we were gonna put a new urethane coating on it. And it was supposed to have been done in the summer. They had shipping issues with materials. They showed up in December, and that's when the tornado came. That's when they left the roof. Everything stopped at that time.
So it never got done.
Never.
That cost was continuing with the roof that's there, just redoing. You said every 10 years it was supposed to be redone. Is that what we're talking about here? So that was not a
That was
redoing.
that was in year 10.
Yes, so that was not a redoing of the roof. I want to make sure I hear that correctly. That was just the plan to continue to maintain that roof.
Right, maintenance.
That was a maintenance piece to that roof, not a redo of that roof. Mr. Gregory, do you have another number there you want to say? Mr. Thomas, I don't mind a bit.
I think kind of the question Mr. Gregory is getting to, so you have the money set aside for 2 years to do that. Tornado comes, it stopped. So the money was then allocated to other budgetary and spent other places.
Or rolled back in the fund balance. It wasn't spent. Now, we did have to pay a $20,000 restocking fee because we had a contract with Brazos. And they had materials on site. And so to get out of that contract, our attorney suggested that we pay them $20,000 to restock those materials. And that's how we got out of that contract.
Mr. Kerr, I saw your hand for a
To
second.
add to that, we had to pay the 20,000 Brazos, and then at the behest of our former mayor, we had to take on the cost of what do you call it,
Yeah, when we did it, the
We had-
structural engineer,
Right, we had to get that.
we paid $10,000
So
for that study.
that cost wound up being $30,000, just to get out. Just to be told that you don't have no insurance on it anymore.
Those costs, work's not done for free. We've learned that for sure. Might be a number to look into for us to see where that number was, something else to maybe even look for. But at this point,
452 is what it was in July 2021.
452,000.
Yes.
So as we're looking at this case, any other comments from this body? Mr. Ginn?
I'm sorry, did I hear, I don't know that I heard that right. We allocated $452,000, I think 30 of it?
We did.
The board
We
did.
did.
The board
Not
did.
y'all.
The board did.
Okay.
So that was money allocated from the school board's budget
Yeah.
to maintain the roof.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions from this body? I know as you chair of the Board of Education there, do you have any other concerns you want us to bring forth before you head to next week's meeting?
No, sir.
I appreciate that.
Covered it very well.
All right, in that case, that does bring tonight's agenda pieces to a close. If I see no other, yes, sir.
One other question, I'm sorry, on the debt service. Is it a typo on page 2 that ESI pays off in May of 27? Should that be May of 37? Or does that loan balloon?
That is a typo. It should be 37.
It's all numbers.
Mine wasn't $2 million.
They have. I don't know, what's 5 years, what's 10 years?
You know, he's gonna have a hard time.
It is.
I was really hoping that was 27.
You said,
When I was looking at that, we were
you said EESI
I saw
was
exactly what you said.
27, is that what I mean?
No, it's 37, it's a
37.
typo. Because I have from last year's, and I was like, I don't recall us paying or a chunk being taken to that.
I was really hoping it was 27.
I know.
All right, any other pieces tonight? That's in debt. While we're looking, you don't mind a bit looking through debt service, or anything else in there you want to see? I think if I'm correct in debt service, we currently only have 2 variable rate loans that we are working on. One of those being the Justice Center and the other being the administration office. Is that correct?
No, our portion of the EESI.
Understood.
The schools took out one and we took it.
Paid off, correct?
I'm sorry?
Admin building is paid off.
Admin building has been paid off.
As you look through your 151, we can continue to discuss them. Anyone with anything in 151 you want to discuss?
Yeah, so the state also pays the interest on it too.
Right. That was a special type of.
Yeah.
4 payments. It rolls off.
Yeah, it goes off in 27.
You see,
What are you saying?
anything in the 151 anyone would like to bring out? I'd see some discussion, but no, not at this time. I know these are numbers to continue looking at. As we said, 151 tonight was more about the conversation of the school and the debt piece there. There are some debts that are going to also be in this 151 in our budget coming up in the next few nights. So keep your eyes on where we are. Understand that 5.37 is probably going to change, not for the good.
Can I ask a question on the debt? We did a 10-year term on the middle school. What would we be doing next term? I mean, obviously, it's going to probably be a variable rate.
No, it would be a fixed rate.
It is a fixed.
It would be a fixed rate. And you're probably looking at either a 10-year or a 12-year note. You can make that decision. You can even do an 8-year if you wanted to.
And the funds are priced similarly to what we've got.
Mm-hmm.
We looked at in the middle school roof, 8, 10, and 12. I know we looked heavily at a 10 and 12 month. Mr. Ford and I were both on budget in those times, and I'm one that would try to pay more and less interest as we can along the way. We both felt the same way in that. I remember those pieces of conversation. The school took a year, the county took 9. We had some items roll off. We paid some pieces off in the last 2 years in debt service. You can actually see those are reflected in your debt service. And that money was able to roll into, actually one of those was a school, high school payment from the wheel tax. And some money left over, was able to make a full payment, so across a year. That has been one thing that and I'd like to mention that here, that this committee in the past has continued to try to do, is to look at cutting down debt. And that's why I mentioned we only have really the Justice Center that's on a variable rate that's starting to cost us a lot more than it.
That's what we're paying.
Yes, that's what I was trying to sort of push to.
We can.
Yes, sir. Especially if we're taking on, if I understand it correctly, and that's why we need to look at those pieces. I'm gonna ask, I hadn't told Miss Amy, but I wanna know where that setting dollar, there's about 1.2 million, actually it's 1.6, right? Left in ARPA funding.
Yes.
It's about 1.6 of the 400,000 change there. We found. There's about 1.6 setting there, drawing some interest. That's what I was gonna ask. Where is it setting and what are we drawing in interest? Is it better for us to look at spending that dollar to cut down on debt? It may be, it's just something to think about. I do plan on bringing that to us as we go forward. I plan on asking Ms. Amy to bring that to us. Where is it setting and what's it drawing?
We have a timeline and we have to use up the ARPA funds.
Like we set up an alarm,
Yeah, there's a button on that panel, just press
it
it.
says silent.
It's not actually connected to anything, from my
Okay.
understanding.
It worked. Thank you, sir. Now, when the sheriff shows up in a minute, we'll understand. No,
You
go
can
ahead.
explain yourself.
The question was, is there a timeline that we have to use up the ARPA funds?
There is not, because we claimed all of our ARPA funding as a revenue loss. So it's ours. We do not have to spend everything by 2024 as was originally stipulated.
How much do we have left in ARPA funds?
We have roughly 1.6 million.
If it's drawing more than our interest is, it's okay, because we're okay on our debt. If it's not, that's why, to me, that is an important number for us to know. I apologize, I was behind on getting that to you. I've been meaning to get it to you in the last week or so. Hey, we're all busy.
And I'll apologize too. I actually meant to have all that information for you tonight.
We're all busy. It's very much the case. Mr. Dennis?
And then, something to keep in mind, personal money is priced different by financial institutions than municipal money. That not only is for loans, but that's on the savings side as well. So knowing where those interest rates are going to fall in the
Looking at that dollar and making wise decisions on this debt, I agree 100% with you. Mr. Thomas, I'll get you there.
Would there be a benefit of taking some of that ARPA funds, maybe not all of it, but a chunk, and putting down on the debt for the criminal justice and going to a fixed rate, locking us in, because it doesn't look like interest rates are going to go down anytime soon.
I hate to fix a rate right now. Myself, but
But it could be better than paying 10 and 15% the next 4 years.
I think that's something we need to know. Where are we gaining and versus the loss? So if I agree with you on that case. That's why we really need to know that number. And if we get that number in front of us, we can make a better a wise decision based on this piece. But I truly hope that's, if I'm reading correctly, that's only owes 1.2 million. So the Justice Center could be removed from our debt. Truthfully, it has a payment of, just some things for us to keep in mind, some pieces to look at. Where's that payment?
And the principal is about 81,000 this year.
This year's payment.
This year, right.
But if I'm looking at it correctly, it's 1.2 million balance owed, 1.29, 1.219 currently, which is going to change on a variable rate.
Now, are ARPA funds separated out from our fund balance, or is it all one line?
That is in a completely different fund from the county general or from debt service.
I'm glad you asked, but I've already asked that in the past, so I like to keep up with where that's sitting. But as you can tell, that Justice Center payment is roughly, and the reason I bring this up, that Justice Center payment's $177,000. 181 this year, I'm sorry, 120,000. So it's about that 118,000 that roof's cost us. Just a thought to bring to this table.
And that would give us a fixed rate loan.
It possibly could, to know exactly. And Mr. Thomas, I don't know why I hope you and I are thinking the same way here in this case. I would rather have a fixed rate because I know where we're going than I would have a variable rate not knowing where we're going.
You know what your yearly cost is.
That's correct. You can budget a lot better on a fixed rate. Even though I don't like the rate it is, would have much rather done it last year in a 2% rate range or 3% rate range. We didn't, and we can't go back up in time. And it might hurt in 5 years if it's back down to that. Or it might be really nice if it's above that. So that's what we said. It's things we have to think about. Very good talks for this piece, this body. Let's keep that in mind, this debt, while there's other debts fixing to come our way, and those are different ways of approaching them. But it's a few things that I've looked at here with that ARPA fund. Don't forget there's 1.6 available. Not saying I want to spend it all, but if we can lessen our debt opportunity.
That rate keeps going up, we might go take a good look at that one.
That's why I want to know what are we drawing on that 1.6? So with that said, any other comments for this, on this board? Nobody? We have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second to that motion? I have a second. Non-debatable. All those in favor, let me know by stating aye. I appreciate your patience, and I think the quietness is we're all looking at numbers that are pretty heavy. I hope the quietness